That's like you wanting an Oriental person to play you as a child. Does that make sense?
No.
So please, people, stop believing these horrifying.
There is a place in the Golden Hills of Santa Barbara County, California, where the sycamores and oaks hide more than just the contours of the land. They hide the footprint of a dream, a 2,700-acre kingdom that was once the most famous address on Earth. It was a place built on a single, fragile premise, that time could be reversed, and childhood, once lost, could be bought. Grainy aerial footage from the late 1980s shows the estate from above, lush green hills rolling away toward the Los Padres National Forest. In the center of it all, a man-made lake shaped like a teardrop catches the California sun. A miniature train snakes through manicured trees. A pristine Ferris wheel, painted in red and gold, stands utterly still against the blue sky. And there, at the gates, a floral clock, its face planted with fresh flowers, displays a time that never changes. This was Neverland Valley Ranch, and this is the story of what happened there. To understand the amusement park, you must first understand the man who built it. Michael Jackson purchased the property in 1988 for a reported $17 million. He was 29 years old, already the biggest pop star on the planet. The Thriller album had shattered every record. The Bad World Tour had cemented his global dominance. He had fame, he had wealth, but what Michael Jackson said he wanted, more than anything, was a childhood he never had. He often spoke of his early years in Gary, Indiana, a precocious lead singer performing in working-class bars and strip clubs before he was 10, watched through windows by other children playing in the street. His father, Joseph Jackson, a steel mill worker, drove the Jackson 5 with relentless discipline. Rehearsals were endless, mistakes were met with beatings, and the laughter and freedom of childhood were sacrificed for Motown perfection. Now, as an adult with unlimited resources, Jackson decided he would build that childhood from scratch. He would create a sanctuary where he could finally be a kid, and where other children, especially sick and underprivileged ones, could come and experience the joy he was denied. The transformation of the former Sycamore Valley Ranch into Neverland was swift and spectacular. Jackson imported an entire fairground, not rented carnival equipment, but a permanent, custom-built amusement park that rivaled any small-town fair in America. A full-sized Ferris wheel rose above the trees, its gondolas painted with scenes from Peter Pan. A carousel with hand-painted horses and animals played Disney tunes instead of traditional calliope music. There was a roller coaster called the Dragon Wagon, a spinning teacup ride, bumper cars, and a wave swinger that lifted riders 40 feet into the air and spun them out over the landscape. Everything gleamed with fresh paint and polished chrome. The floral clock at the entrance was a replica of the one at Disneyland, but the flowers spelled out the word Neverland. A fully functional steam train, which Jackson named the Catherine after his mother, circled the property on 2 miles of track, passing a station platform decorated with posters of his idols and filled with arcade games. There was a full movie theater with plush velvet seats and a glass-fronted candy counter where everything was free. A petting zoo housed llamas, giraffes, elephants, orangutans, and a chimpanzee named Bubbles who wore matching outfits with his owner. Every detail was designed to evoke wonder, every element a declaration of a new reality where the rules of the outside world did not apply. This was not a celebrity buying toys. This was the meticulous construction of a fantasy, a physical manifestation of a mind obsessed with reclaiming lost innocence. For the children who visited during the ranch's peak years in the early 1990s, Neverland was a dream beyond imagination. Buses would arrive carrying kids from inner-city schools, children's hospitals, and charitable organizations like the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They would stream through the gates, eyes wide, clutching their invitations. At the amusement park, there was one sacred rule: the rides never stopped. If a child finished the Ferris wheel and wanted to go again, they stayed on. If they wanted to ride the bumper cars for an hour straight, they did. The candy counter at the movie theater was stocked with anything a child could want, and they were encouraged to take as much as they liked. Cotton candy machines hummed constantly. Free popcorn was everywhere, and the air smelled perpetually of sugar and popcorn oil. Jackson himself was often present, dressed not in his stage costumes but in simple black pants, a colorful silk shirt, and a black fedora. He would move through the park with an almost shy demeanor, his voice soft and high-pitched, barely above a whisper. He would ride the carousel alongside his young guests, eat pizza with them, and then lead them to the movie theater for a screening of a Disney classic, often with his pet chimpanzee perched on a seat nearby. Home video footage shows these scenes in warm, idealized light. Laughing children, a smiling pop star, cotton candy sunsets. It was a powerful narrative of charity and whimsy, and for a time, it worked. The public saw a benevolent, magical figure, a modern-day Peter Pan who had used his fortune to build a paradise for children. But even in the brightest sunshine, shadows fall. There was always an undercurrent of unease around Neverland, a quiet question whispered on the margins. Why would a grown man, one of the most famous adults on the planet, surround himself so exclusively with children? Jackson's defenders pointed to his lost youth, his well-documented generosity, his almost messianic belief in the healing power of childlike wonder. His critics saw something else entirely, a carefully constructed grooming environment, a honey trap designed to lure the vulnerable into a world with no boundaries. The amusement park, in this reading, was not a gift. It was bait. Every free candy bar, every unlimited ride, every sleepover invitation to the sprawling French Normandy-style main house became evidence of a darker purpose. The very architecture of Neverland, with its fantasy-driven, rule-free design, began to take on a sinister cast. The floral clock, which always read the same time, became a symbol not of eternal youth, but of a frozen psychology, a place where normal human development was arrested, and the usual safeguards of adulthood were conspicuously absent. The ranch was a place where the line between host and guest, adult and child, fantasy and reality blurred, and in that blurring, troubling questions began to take root. The first public crack in the fantasy appeared in August 1993. A 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler and his family accused Jackson of sexual abuse. The details that emerged were shocking. Chandler described being Jackson's special friend, a term Jackson used for favored young companions. He spoke of sleepovers in Jackson's bedroom, of gifts and trips, and the gradual escalation of physical intimacy. The amusement park, once a symbol of innocent fun, was now cast as the entry point into a predator's web. The rides that never stopped, the candy that was always free, the movies that played on command, all of it was reframed as a calculated seduction. Investigators from the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department descended on Neverland. They photographed every corner of the park, measured the distances between the Ferris wheel and the mansion, documented the layout of the bedrooms and the security systems designed to give warning of approaching adults. The world saw images of the empty carousel, the deserted bumper cars, the silent movie theater. The music had stopped. The investigation ultimately ended without criminal charges after Jackson reached a multi-million-dollar financial settlement with the Chandler family, a decision that haunted the rest of his life. Jackson maintained his innocence, but the settlement was widely perceived as an admission of guilt. Neverland was no longer a fairy tale. It was a crime scene in the court of public opinion. Despite the scandal, Jackson returned to Neverland. He married Lisa Marie Presley in 1994, and the couple gave interviews presenting the ranch as a family home. He continued to host children, though the numbers dwindled. The park still operated, the train still ran, the carousel still turned, but the magic had curdled. The estate became less a place of joy and more a fortress of retreat. Jackson's physical appearance changed dramatically as the years passed, his face becoming gaunt and pale, his reliance on painkillers and sedatives growing. The ranch, with its vast acreage and enormous operating costs, became a financial albatross. The payroll for the amusement park alone, the zookeepers, the ride operators, the maintenance crews, the groundskeepers, ran into millions of dollars annually. The property that was supposed to be his sanctuary became another source of pressure. In 2003, another devastating blow landed. The documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, filmed by British journalist Martin Bashir, showed the star holding hands with a young cancer survivor named Gavin Arvizo and admitting to sharing his bed with children, though he insisted it was entirely non-sexual. The footage was a public relations disaster. The amusement park appeared in the background of several shots, a garish testament to Jackson's eccentricities and his unapologetic insistence that his way of life was natural and innocent. That same year, the Arvizo family filed criminal charges, and Jackson was arrested. The 2005 trial of Michael Jackson was a global media circus. The People v. Michael Jackson centered on allegations of conspiracy, abduction, and the sexual abuse of Gavin Arvizo. Neverland once again became a focal point of criminal investigation. Prosecutors sought to portray the ranch as a predator's paradise, a place where alcohol was served to children in soda cans, and where Jackson's bedroom was a sanctum of secret abuse. The amusement park was Exhibit A in their narrative of entrapment. Defense attorneys countered by painting the Arvizo family as grifters and extortionists, and they emphasized Jackson's charitable intentions, showing the joy on the faces of thousands of sick children who had visited Neverland without any harm. The jury deliberations lasted for weeks, and in June 2005, Jackson was acquitted on all counts. He was a free man, legally exonerated but irreparably damaged. Standing outside the courthouse, gaunt and hollow-eyed, he looked like a ghost of the man who had once danced on top of a Ferris wheel in his own private Eden. He never returned to live at Neverland. He called it no longer a home, but a place where his privacy and spirit had been violated. He dismissed most of the staff, shut down the rides, and mothballed the amusement park. The Catherine train sat silent on its tracks. The floral clock wilted. The animals were relocated to sanctuaries and other zoos. The Ferris wheel, once a spinning crown of lights visible from miles away, stood frozen against the sky, its paint beginning to peel. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of acute propofol intoxication at a rented mansion in Los Angeles, preparing for a comeback tour that would never happen. He was 50 years old. The funeral was a global spectacle, and the tributes poured in from every corner of the planet. In the weeks that followed, attention turned back to Neverland, the physical monument to his complicated legacy. What would become of the amusement park that had once been the heart of his kingdom? The estate was co-owned by a private equity firm, and the massive debt attached to it made a sale inevitable. The rides were dismantled, loaded onto flatbed trucks, and sold at auction. The carousel horses, the Ferris wheel gondolas, the Dragon Wagon roller coaster cars, all were cataloged and scattered to the winds, landing in private collections and traveling fairs. The floral clock was dug up. The train station was emptied of its arcade cabinets. The movie theater's velvet seats were removed. In aerial photographs taken in the years after Jackson's death, the footprint of the amusement park is still faintly visible, a ghostly outline in the grass where the rides once stood, a scar on the earth that refuses to fully heal. The property itself sat on the market for years, first listed at $100 million, then slashed repeatedly, unable to find a buyer willing to take on its history. Finally, in late 2020, billionaire investor Ron Burkle purchased the ranch for $22 million, a fraction of its peak valuation. The new owner, a family friend of Jackson's, has reportedly maintained much of the landscaping and restored the floral clock. But the amusement park is gone forever, not to be rebuilt. The estate is once again called Sycamore Valley Ranch, its original name, as if shedding the title Neverland could erase the memories embedded in the soil. But names do not easily erase the past. The story of Michael Jackson's amusement park is ultimately the story of Michael Jackson himself. It is a story of impossible dreams and staggering creativity, of a man who reached the pinnacle of artistic and financial success, and used it to build a world where the rides never stopped, and the candy was always free. It is also a story of profound isolation, of the dark side of fantasy, and of the unanswerable question of what happens when a dream curdles into something else entirely. The carousel has stopped, the music has faded, and the children have all gone home. All that remains is the land, the trees, the teardrop-shaped lake reflecting an empty sky, and the lingering, contested memory of a place where, for a time, a wounded king tried to make the world a child's paradise, and instead created a monument to the dangers of believing that money can buy innocence.